A story of freedom forged in suffering, Papillon wasn't just another prison escape movie. It was a brutal test of endurance, artistry, and truth that pushed its stars to physical and emotional extremes, while the crew battled the elements across continents. Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman delivered performances that still resonate half a century later, creating something far more than cinema. What they captured on film was survival itself, raw and unfiltered. Here are the secrets that reveal how this classic truly earned its scars, starting with a leap that still takes your breath away. Number 1. The jump was real. When you watch that legendary cliff dive, you're witnessing something almost unheard of in Hollywood. No stunt double and safety nets, just Steve McQueen launching himself off a cliff in Maui into unpredictable surf below. The entire production held its breath as he disappeared beneath the waves, uncertain if their leading man would resurface. Those agonizing seconds felt like an eternity to the crew watching from above. When McQueen finally broke the surface, wild applause erupted across the entire production team. It was a moment that captured everything the film stood for, raw courage in the face of impossible odds. This wasn't just method acting or ego. McQueen understood that audiences would sense the difference between real danger and manufactured thrills. That single jump became the defining visual metaphor for Papillon itself. A man betting everything on one impossible leap toward freedom. Number 2. Shot in paradise playing hell. The irony wasn't lost on anyone involved in the production. Devil's Island, one of history's most notorious prison colonies, was recreated across some of the world's most beautiful locations. Spain, Jamaica, and Hawaii stood in for French Guiana, their tropical beauty masking the brutal reality of filming conditions. What appeared as cinematic despair on screen was actually captured under relentless sun and crushing humidity. Crew members collapsed from heat exhaustion, while expensive equipment corroded almost overnight in the moisture-heavy air. The exotic locations became their own kind of prison for cast and crew alike. Every frame of tropical suffering came at a real physical cost. The production transformed paradise into punishment, proving that sometimes the hardest part of making a prison film is surviving the shoot itself. The weather wasn't acting, and neither were the faces drenched in genuine exhaustion. Number 3. Real insects, real reactions. There's a reason that bug-eating scene still makes audiences squirm decades later. McQueen refused to fake it, insisting on using a real insect and biting down while cameras rolled. The disgust you see on screen isn't acting. It's the genuine reaction of a man doing something truly repulsive for his art. The commitment to authenticity didn't stop there. Production designers filled McQueen's solitary confinement cell with live roaches and beetles, creating an environment that required no imagination from the actor. Every twitch, every moment of revulsion came from a place of absolute reality. This dedication to the grotesque elevated Papillon beyond typical Hollywood prison fare. While other films relied on suggestion and clever camera angles, this production demanded its star actually live through the horror. The result is a visceral authenticity that continues to unsettle viewers half a century later. Number 4. The hidden symbolism of butterflies. The tattoo on McQueen's chest was just the beginning of an intricate visual language woven throughout the entire film. Production designer Anthony Masters embedded butterfly imagery into nearly every frame, hiding the symbol in shadows, clothing folds, and even scratched into cell walls as graffiti. Most viewers never consciously noticed, but the subliminal effect was powerful. This wasn't random decoration, but deliberate metaphor. The butterfly represented transformation, the journey from something trapped and earthbound to something capable of flight. Masters understood that the most effective symbolism works on the audience's subconscious, creating emotional resonance without calling attention to itself. Every hidden butterfly reinforced the central theme of metamorphosis. Papillon's journey from convicted criminal to liberated spirit played out not just in the narrative, but in the visual DNA of the film itself. The imagery created a silent dialogue between screen and viewer, one that continues to reward careful observation with each new viewing. Number 5. A censored debut. Ratna Asan's brief but memorable appearance as Zoraima marked her film debut and immediately sparked international controversy. Her scenes carried a sensual charge that censors in multiple countries found objectionable, with demands for cuts coming, especially from Asian markets where cultural standards clashed with the film's romantic tone. The controversy highlighted the tension between artistic vision and global distribution. While some territories insisted on edits, most Western releases kept the scenes intact, adding an element of forbidden allure to the film's marketing. The debate itself became part of Papillon's cultural footprint. What made the controversy particularly interesting was how it underscored the film's refusal to sanitize the prisoner experience. These men were deprived of everything, including human connection, and the film didn't shy away from showing what that deprivation meant. The scene served a narrative purpose beyond mere titillation, showing brief moments of humanity in an otherwise dehumanizing existence. Number 6. McQueen's secret silent rehearsals. Before cameras ever rolled on the film's most emotional moments, something unusual was happening on set. McQueen would run through entire scenes without speaking a single word, repeating them over and over to memorize what he called the rhythm of feeling. Director Franklin Schaffner not only allowed this unconventional approach, but actively encouraged it. This silent muscle memory technique gave McQueen's performance an unusual quality that's hard to define, but impossible to miss. There's a stillness to his work in Papillon that feels different from his other roles, a sense that emotions are happening beneath the surface rather than being performed for the camera. The approach paid off in ways that transcend traditional acting methods. McQueen's Papillon feels lived in rather than acted, as if we're watching a real person endure impossible circumstances. That strange stillness, born from silent rehearsals, gives the performance its raw power and makes his eventual triumph feel earned rather than manufactured. Number 7. Hoffman's hidden vision trick. Those thick, oversized glasses that defined Louis Degas presented a serious technical challenge. How do you maintain natural eye contact and precise timing when you literally can't see properly through your character's signature prop? Hoffman solved the problem with an ingenious workaround that most viewers never suspected. Custom contact lenses allowed him to see clearly through Degas' heavy prescription glasses without any visual distortion. This seemingly small detail made an enormous difference in his performance, enabling him to maintain the subtle eye movements and perfect timing that great acting requires. The solution exemplified Hoffman's commitment to technical precision in service of character. While McQueen worked through silence and physical transformation, Hoffman solved practical problems with clever innovation. Together, their different approaches created one of cinema's great on-screen partnerships, each actor bringing unique methods to complement the other's strengths. Number 8. Solitary took a real toll. The physical transformation you witnessed during the solitary confinement sequences wasn't achieved through makeup or special effects. McQueen actually lost significant weight and lived on a severely restricted diet to portray weeks of isolation accurately. His gaunt, hollow face was the real result of deliberate physical suffering for the role. Combined with harsh lighting and oppressive heat on set, these scenes extracted a genuine toll on the actor. The emotional drain mirrored the physical one, as McQueen pushed himself to the edge to capture Papillon's unraveling sanity. What makes these scenes so powerful is knowing that the suffering isn't simulated. When you watch McQueen's face transform from determined prisoner to broken ghost, you're witnessing real deprivation playing out on camera. The commitment elevated Papillon beyond typical prison drama into something that genuinely documents human endurance at its absolute limit. Number 9. Filming at a real penal landmark. For the film's powerful finale, the production made a pilgrimage to French Guiana to film near the actual Camp de la Transportation. This was the genuine historical site where condemned prisoners once departed for Devil's Island, their last glimpse of relative civilization before entering hell. The location carried weight that no constructed set could match. Walking through those crumbling cells affected everyone involved in ways they hadn't anticipated. The stones themselves seemed haunted by the thousands of men who had suffered there, and that eerie authenticity seeped into every frame. This decision to film at the real location gave the finale an emotional resonance that transcends performance. The setting itself became a character, bearing witness to both historical tragedy and cinematic recreation. It's the difference between reading about suffering and standing in the place where it actually occurred, a choice that gave Papillon its devastating final impact. Number 10. Critics were split, audiences not. When Papillon opened in theaters, the critical response was surprisingly divided. Roger Ebert dismissed it as gritty, but emotionally distant, while other reviewers questioned whether audiences wanted this level of uncompromising bleakness. The film seemed destined to become a respected failure, admired for ambition but rejected for execution. Audiences had a completely different reaction. They made Papillon a genuine smash hit, packing theaters and spreading word of mouth that contradicted the mixed reviews. The film's grim realism connected with moviegoers hungry for something deeper than escapism, something that treated them like adults capable of handling difficult truths. This disconnect between critics and audiences revealed something important about early 70s cinema. Viewers were ready for darker, more challenging material than the critical establishment wanted to acknowledge. Papillon proved that unflinching honesty could succeed commercially, paving the way for the decade's greatest realistic dramas. Number 11. The extras who risked everything. Hundreds of local extras in Jamaica and Spain endured conditions that would be unthinkable on modern film sets. Blistering heat combined with heavy metal shackles and long shooting days created a genuinely dangerous environment. These weren't actors pretending to suffer, they were people actually experiencing physical hardship for the sake of authenticity. When tensions finally reached a breaking point, McQueen stepped in personally to address the situation. He paid out of his own pocket for better food, mandatory rest periods, and improved treatment for the extras. This wasn't a publicity stunt, but a genuine act of leadership from someone who understood that great films require respecting everyone involved in their creation. The intervention cemented McQueen's reputation as more than just a movie star. His willingness to stand up for the most vulnerable people on set revealed a character that matched his on-screen persona. Those extras never forgot his generosity, and their authentic performances in the film owe as much to his off-screen leadership as to any direction they received. Number 12. Trumbo's endless rewrite odyssey. The screenplay that eventually became Papillon traveled through a labyrinth of rewrites before cameras rolled. Dalton Trumbo's original draft underwent substantial reshapings by Lorenzo Semple Jr., while early development phases even considered Roman Polanski or Warren Beatty for leading roles. Each writer brought different sensibilities, creating a script that evolved dramatically from its first conception. This rewrite odyssey wasn't just typical Hollywood development chaos. Each new version softened certain harsh realities from the source material while simultaneously deepening the film's examination of humanity under extreme duress. The moral complexity that defines Papillon emerged from this painful editing process. The final screenplay represented a delicate balance between brutal honesty and emotional accessibility. Too much realism would alienate audiences, too little would betray the story's essence. The endless rewrites, frustrating as they were, ultimately crafted something more powerful than any single draft could have achieved. Number 13. The book's truth, complicated. Henri Charrière swore until his final days that every word of his memoir was absolutely true. Historians and researchers tell a very different story, presenting compelling evidence that he merged experiences from multiple inmates into one mythic narrative. The line between memory and invention becomes impossibly blurred when examining the source material. The film inherited this fundamental ambiguity about truth and legend. Rather than trying to separate fact from fiction, Papillon embraced the uncertainty, understanding that survival stories often become mythology. What matters isn't whether every event literally happened to one man, but whether the emotional truth of the experience resonates. This complicated relationship with historical accuracy actually strengthened the film's impact. By existing in that gray area between documentary and legend, Papillon accessed deeper truths about human endurance. Sometimes the most honest films are the ones that acknowledge the impossibility of complete honesty. Number 14. A role McQueen fans call his best. Oscar voters somehow overlooked McQueen's performance, but his fans have never made that mistake. Decades later, many consider Papillon his finest work, the role that revealed depths hidden behind his usual cool guy persona. Here was an actor known for motorcycle jumps and car chases, showing vulnerability, pain, and a fragile humanity that surprised even longtime admirers. The performance showcases a rare combination of pride and humility, strength and desperation. McQueen doesn't just play a man refusing to break, he embodies the exhausting cost of that refusal. Every moment of defiance feels earned because we see how much it depletes him. This complexity separated Papillon from everything else in McQueen's filmography. The role demanded he set aside the protective armor of stardom and expose genuine weakness. For an actor who built his reputation on unshakable confidence, this willingness to show brokenness represented the ultimate act of courage, creating a performance that only grows more impressive with time. Number 15. Goldsmith's score that broke the silence. Composer Jerry Goldsmith crafted one of his most haunting and unconventional scores by understanding what not to play. Rather than filling every moment with music, he let silence dominate vast stretches of the film, then deployed his aching theme only at carefully chosen emotional peaks. The restraint made each musical moment land with devastating impact. This approach required tremendous confidence and discipline. Most composers fear silence, worried that absence of music means absence of contribution. Goldsmith understood that in a film about deprivation and isolation, silence itself becomes a powerful dramatic tool, making the moments when music does appear feel like emotional release. The result remains one of cinema's most effective scores precisely because of its sparing use. That main theme still cuts straight to the heart decades later, partly because we hear it so infrequently throughout the film. Goldsmith proved that sometimes the bravest choice a composer can make is knowing when to stay silent and let the story breathe. Number 16. The Leper Colony's Quiet Horror. The handshake scene between Papillon and the leper remains one of the film's most powerful moments. There's no dramatic music, no elaborate dialogue, just a simple gesture of human connection that redefines what dignity means in captivity. The stillness of the moment carries more weight than any speech could deliver. Director Franklin Schaffner understood that some truths are too profound for words. He filmed the scene with minimal dialogue, allowing silence to do the moral heavy lifting. The courage required to reach across fear and touch another human being speaks volumes about compassion, surviving even in hell's darkest corners. This quiet horror lingers long after the scene ends. It forces viewers to confront their own prejudices and fears while celebrating the simplest act of kindness. In a film filled with physical brutality and dramatic escapes, this gentle moment of humanity becomes the most unforgettable, proving that sometimes the smallest gestures carry the greatest meaning. Number 17. A studio saved by one prisoner. Allied Artists was circling the drain financially when Papillon entered production. The studio had suffered a string of commercial failures and was facing potential bankruptcy, making this expensive prison drama feel like a desperate final gamble. Few industry insiders believed the company would survive regardless of the film's performance. The movie's unexpected success changed everything. Box office returns breathed new life into Allied Artists, restoring credibility to its production slate and buying the company precious time. For a studio that had been written off by Hollywood, McQueen's Prisoner became an unlikely savior. The irony wasn't lost on anyone involved. A film about a man refusing to accept his sentence ended up rescuing a studio that seemed condemned to failure. Papillon proved that sometimes the most desperate situations produce the most determined survival stories, both on screen and behind the scenes, in the brutal business of filmmaking. Number 18. The Box Office Miracle. Opening weekend delivered over $3 million. Strong numbers for 1973, but hardly unprecedented. What made Papillon remarkable wasn't its initial performance, but its staying power. Unlike many dramatic releases that peaked quickly and faded, this film kept climbing week after week through powerful word of mouth. Audiences weren't just watching Papillon, they were telling everyone they knew to see it. The film's grim realism connected with moviegoers hungry for adult storytelling that didn't condescend or simplify. In an era when many studios still doubted whether serious dramas could sustain long theatrical runs, this prison epic proved them wrong. The sustained box office performance validated every risky decision made during production. Those brutal location shoots, the commitment to authenticity, the refusal to soften the story's edges, all of it paid off commercially. Papillon demonstrated that audiences would embrace challenging material if filmmakers had the courage to trust them with difficult truths. Number 19. The Maui Physics Problem. Could a man actually escape Devil's Island on a makeshift coconut raft? From a purely scientific standpoint, probably not. The currents, the distance, the structural integrity of such a primitive vessel, all the evidence suggests the escape was physically impossible. Yet the film had to make audiences believe it anyway. The crew attacked the problem from every angle. They studied tidal patterns, positioned cameras to use optical tricks that made the journey seem more plausible, and relied on McQueen's absolute commitment to sell the moment. The solution wasn't about proving it could work, but making viewers want to believe it could work. That final leap becomes less about physics and more about faith. The film earns that leap through everything that came before, building such emotional investment that audiences don't question the mechanics. McQueen's faith in the moment sells the impossible as destiny, turning a dubious escape into cinema's most triumphant act of liberation. Number 20. The budget gamble that worked. $13.5 million represented a massive financial risk for 1973. Studio executives looked at the grim subject matter and questioned whether audiences would pay to watch this much suffering. The The budget covered exotic location shoots, international travel, and months of production across multiple continents, all for a story without a traditional happy ending. Every concerned memo from nervous executives proved wrong. The gamble paid off spectacularly as Papillon became a worldwide phenomenon, validating the expensive location choices and grueling production schedule. What looked like reckless spending during production became shrewd investment once audiences responded. The financial success sent a clear message to Hollywood. Audiences were ready for ambitious, challenging films that treated them with respect. The budget that seemed excessive during production became the industry standard for serious adult dramas, proving that investing in quality and authenticity delivers returns that safe, cheap compromises never could. Number 21. The Secret French Advisors. Behind the scenes, director Franklin Schaffner made a controversial decision that added unexpected authenticity to the production. He quietly hired former French colonial officers and historians who had first-hand knowledge of the actual prison system. Their accounts shaped everything from the accuracy of uniforms to the brutal rituals that defined daily life in the camps. These consultants provided details no amount of research could uncover. They described the psychological tactics guards used, the hierarchies among prisoners, and the small degradations that broke men's spirits more effectively than physical punishment. Some of these advisors even appeared on camera as guards, their faces carrying the weight of a brutal past they had witnessed or participated in. The decision to involve them remains ethically complex. These men represented a system designed to destroy human beings, yet their participation gave Papillon a disturbing authenticity that purely fictional portrayals could never achieve. They were ghosts of a terrible era, immortalized on film as witnesses to their own historical sins. Number 22. The Lost Schaffner Cut. Before the theatrical release, Schaffner screened a longer, significantly darker version of Papillon that reportedly ran close to 3 hours. This extended cut contained additional violence and longer introspective sequences that explored the psychological damage of captivity in even greater depth. Studio executives watched nervously, concerned that audiences wouldn't endure such unrelenting bleakness. Pressure from the studio forced Schaffner to trim the film considerably. The cuts removed some of the most brutal moments and tightened the pacing to make the experience more commercially palatable. While the theatrical version succeeded with audiences, those who saw the original cut insisted something vital was lost in the editing process. That longer director's cut vanished into studio archives and has never resurfaced. Film historians consider it one of the great lost masterpieces of 70s cinema, a mystery that fuels endless speculation. Without access to those lost reels, we may never know the full truth of Schaffner's original vision. Number 23. Awards, a near-miss classic. Despite strong Oscar nominations for both Steve McQueen and Jerry Goldsmith, Papillon walked away from awards season empty-handed. The Academy seemed uncomfortable with the film's unflinching brutality, favoring more conventional dramas that didn't ask audiences to endure quite so much suffering. For a film that pushed boundaries in every direction, the lack of recognition felt like a final cruel irony. Yet time has proven a better judge than gold statues. While many of that year's winners have faded from cultural memory, Papillon endures as the definitive film about human endurance under impossible circumstances. Its influence can be traced through decades of prison dramas and survival stories that followed. The snub no longer matters. Recognition from award voters lasts one night, but becoming a touchstone of cinema lasts forever. Papillon achieved something far more valuable than trophies. It became the standard by which all other stories of captivity and escape are measured. Number 24. The 2017 remake reignited debate. When the Charlie Hunnam and Rami Malek remake premiered decades later, it sparked renewed fascination with the original film. Reviewers approached it fairly, praising the attempt to reinterpret the story for modern audiences. Yet, almost universally, they concluded that something essential was missing, a quality the original possessed that couldn't be recreated or replicated. The comparison highlighted what made the older version so special. McQueen's weathered intensity and Hoffman's nervous energy created a chemistry that felt unrepeatable. The remake's technical polish couldn't compensate for the raw authenticity of the original, which had been forged through genuine suffering rather than digital effects. The remake's commercial disappointment only reinforced the power of Schaffner's vision. The 2017 version served an unexpected purpose, sending new generations back to discover why the original remains untouchable and proving that some classics exist beyond the reach of modern reinterpretation. Number 25. From grim to great stunt cinema. Critics once dismissed Papillon as too bleak for its own good, a punishing experience that mistook suffering for profundity. The assessment couldn't have been more wrong. Over the decades, the film's reputation transformed completely, earning recognition as one of the most daring adventure dramas ever made. What changed wasn't the film, but audience understanding of what heroism actually looks like. Papillon showed that courage isn't always about strength or confidence, but about refusing to surrender when every logical reason says you should. The blend of realism, pain, and redemption redefines cinematic heroism as something fragile, determined, and defiantly human. Today it stands as a masterpiece of endurance cinema, influencing everything from prison dramas to survival thrillers. The film proved that audiences don't need superheroes to witness extraordinary courage, just ordinary people pushed beyond their limits and choosing dignity over despair. That lesson remains as powerful now as it was 50 years ago. Half a century later, Papillon remains cinema's ultimate escape story, one where the bars weren't just metal, but existential. It's a film about refusing to break even when the world demands surrender, about finding freedom in the refusal to let captivity define your spirit. Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman created something that transcends typical prison drama. The authenticity they demanded resulted in a film that doesn't just tell a story, but makes you feel the weight of every moment. If you love discovering the untold stories behind timeless films, hit that like button and subscribe. What moment in Papillon still gives you chills? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.